All right, we're going to jump in our time machine and head back, way back, about 3,000 years. We're looking at a critical 400-year window that didn't just tweak a few things in India, it completely reshaped the future of an entire civilization. Welcome to the later Vedic period. And I'm not talking about a minor update. Just think about it for a second. Everything you believe about the gods, your place in society, even who you are at your very core, imagine all of that getting turned on its head and rebuilt from the ground up. That's the kind of epic change we're talking about here. It's a huge question, right? How does an entire society have such a fundamental change of heart? Well, that is exactly what we are going to unpack in this explainer. So, where do we even begin with a transformation this big? Let's start at the top. And I mean literally at the very top, with the gods themselves. The whole focus of worship started to shift big time. The old guard, gods like Indra, the powerful god of thunder, and Agni, the god of fire, they began to fade into the background. And rising up to take their place was a new trinity with huge cosmic jobs. Prajapati, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Rudra, a fierce god who would eventually become known as Shiva. This wasn't just swapping out one set of deities for another. It was a move toward a bigger, more abstract idea of the divine. It made more sense for a society that was settling down, farming, and thinking more about cosmic cycles than just unpredictable weather. And here's the key. Religion wasn't just about trying to get the gods on your side anymore. It became about something much bigger, actively maintaining the balance of the entire universe, a concept known as Rita. And how did they believe you could influence this grand cosmic order? Through rituals. Really, really elaborate and powerful rituals. Now, we're not talking about a simple prayer before a meal. These sacrifices, the yajnas, were massive productions. The Rajasuya was basically a king's ultimate power move, his way of declaring his absolute authority. The Vajrapaya was all about bringing in prosperity and strength. And then you had the most famous of all, the Ashwamedha, a complex horse sacrifice that was a king's way of saying, "See all this land? Yeah, it's mine now." This was truly high-stakes religious theater. Okay, so what happens when your most important rituals get super complicated? Well, the people who know how to perform them become absolutely essential. This is exactly what happened with the Brahmana priests. They became the gatekeepers of cosmic and political power, cementing their position at the very top of the social ladder. So, as you can imagine, this massive shift in the heavens had a ripple effect right down here on Earth. It ended up creating a whole new social blueprint. And that blueprint is the varna system, which really hardened during this time. Think of it as 4 tiers. At the very top, you have the Brahmanas, the priests and the thinkers. Right below them, the Kshatriyas, who were the warriors and rulers. Then came the Vaishyas, the economic engine, merchants, artisans, and farmers. And finally, the Shudras, who performed labor and served the other 3 classes. But here is the single biggest change. And honestly, it was a tough one. The system became rigid. It became hereditary. Your place in society wasn't determined by your talent or your ambition anymore, but by the family you were born into. This basically slammed the door shut on social mobility for countless people. At the same time, another major social shift was happening. The status of women was in decline. Their roles were increasingly pushed into the private, domestic sphere. They were mostly barred from public meetings, and their access to education shrank. Now, it's important to remember there were these brilliant, notable exceptions, like the philosophers Gargi and Maitreyi, who were intellectual powerhouses. But for many women, their world got a lot smaller. Now, you've got this world of incredibly complex public rituals and a very rigid social order. And out of that pressure, a quiet but powerful counter-movement began to stir. A new wave of thinkers started looking not outward, but inward. The entire spiritual center of gravity began to move. It started shifting away from the grand public sacrifices and the power of the priests, and it turned toward a deeply personal, internal quest for wisdom and enlightenment. This was a revolution of the mind, and it was all captured in a series of incredible philosophical texts called the Upanishads. And the ideas in the Upanishads are absolutely world-changing. First up, you have the concept of Brahman. Now, this isn't a god sitting on a cloud. It's more like the fabric of reality itself, the single universal consciousness that connects every single thing in existence. So, if Brahman is the vast cosmic ocean, then what are we? We are the Atman. The Atman is your individual soul, that eternal spark of the divine within you. And here is the great, mind-blowing realization of the Upanishads. Your Atman isn't just a part of Brahman, it is Brahman. The drop of water is the ocean. So what's the goal of all this deep internal work? It's to achieve moksha. This is liberation, freedom from samsara, that endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The path to moksha wasn't found in a complicated ritual performed by a priest. It was found through personal self-realization, that profound inner awakening to the fact that your soul and the universal soul are one and the same. So you put all these revolutionary changes together in religion, in society, and in philosophy, and what do you get? You get a legacy that has lasted for thousands of years. This table really says it all, doesn't it? You see the gods shift from nature deities to cosmic forces. Rituals go from simple prayers to massive sacrifices. Society goes from a more fluid structure to a rigid hereditary one. And, maybe most importantly, philosophy pivots from focusing on external actions to deep internal inquiry. It's a complete overhaul. And that's the ultimate takeaway. This 400-year period was the forge where the foundational ideas of classical Hinduism were hammered into shape. Core concepts like karma, reincarnation, and the quest for spiritual liberation that would go on to influence billions, they all have their roots right here in this incredible age of transformation. And that leaves us with one final thought. These aren't just dusty historical facts. They are living, breathing ideas about reality, our place in the world, and the very nature of our consciousness. So the real question is, how do you see the echoes of this 3,000-year-old revolution still shaping our world today?